Well, hey everyone. Okay, I know it's been a really, really long time and some things are clearly different. So one, I got a haircut and I shaved my beard. Two, we are in a new house. If you follow us on our personal Instagrams, and by us, I mean me and my wife, you would have seen that we have moved just a little bit across town. We're still here in Nashville. We're still doing the same things that we were doing. But we're here. We're in a new house. We have a new setup. And a new area for us to brew coffee and talk about coffee. So today I really want to talk about one big thing that I think has almost plagued at-home coffee drinkers when it comes to entering into drinking specialty coffee, and that's how to review and evaluate the coffees that you're drinking. So that's what we're going to cover today as we kind of dive back into posting content and sharing videos for your enjoyment and also for your education. So if you have been following us for any amount of time, whether it's here on YouTube, it's on our social media, our other social media outlets, because YouTube is a social media network, but on Facebook and Instagram, if you subscribe/follow us on our blog at thenewcoffeeforeverydayuse.com, then you would know that we are all about making coffee more accessible to the everyday coffee drinker. We're sharing these tips and tricks and resources in order for you to be able to drink coffee better than you would have been able to drink it before. And today, like I said, we want to cover how to review and evaluate coffees when you're at home. And before we dive into talking about that, here's the things that you need to have. You need to have good, clean, filtered water. Whether that be on a Brita filter pitcher, or I use the zero water pitcher. You can also go get distilled water and purchase third wave water packets. I've talked about that a few times, whether it be here or on the Instagram. You need good water, because without good water, you can't have good coffee, since coffee is 98% water in the first place. Two, you need a good grinder, or if you don't have access to a grinder at home, you need to have your local coffee shop that you buy your coffee from grind it to the appropriate setting. And that's when you go in or call them and ask, hey, I'm using this brew method. What grind setting would you recommend on your grinder so I can come in and get it? You also need a kettle, some way to pour hot water, or to get water hot and pour it into over your grounds, whether that be a Bonavita adjustable variable temp kettle. You need to be able to control the temperature. We shared a little bit about some of our favorite brewing methods on the Coffee for Everyday Use blog. So just look for, just head to coffeeforeverydayuse.com. It's probably the second blog post, how to make coffee, part 1. So you need those things. That's base ground, everything you need before you move into making coffee. Now, we just got this beauty from Onyx, the Costa Rica Las Lajas Natural. And this is what we're going to use this as our starting point, our focal point for when we talk about reviewing and evaluating coffees. And we're going to try to go through this quick, because we can go the kind of specialty evaluation grader route that I use when I'm at work, but we're not working in a specialty coffee shop. We're just trying to make coffee and enjoy it. So taking those concepts that we have in the industry, here's how you, as just a coffee drinker, can enjoy the coffee that you are drinking. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to note what is on the label. A few different things that you can kind of take into account when you're looking at reviewing and evaluating your coffees. It's the region or country, and that's Costa Rica. The processing method, natural. We've talked a little bit about that in the Coffee for Everyday Use book, what processing does and doesn't, what it does and does not do to your coffee. So if you don't have a copy of Coffee for Everyday Use, go ahead and head to Amazon. We'll have a link in the description below for you to click and purchase that. But the processing method, it's a natural processed coffee. So I know for a fact that it's going to have some really fruity, kind of funky in a good way notes. There are some other kind of extraneous pieces of information that you don't need to know as just a coffee drinker. The elevation, how high it is, determines how long it's going to take to grow on the tree or the shrub, because it's more of a shrub than it is a tree. How long it's going to take to grow on the shrub, and if it's a higher elevation, it's going to be sweeter. If it's a lower elevation, it's going to be a little bit more bland and earthy. That's all you really need to know about that. And then varieties. This is something that as you're drinking your coffee, you can search and research what the varieties really mean. It's basically the difference in other terms, the difference between a Fuji apple and a Golden Delicious apple. It's the same kind of fruit, but it's just a different type. Now, this is where we get into the important part. Before you start brewing and drinking your coffee, you need to know a little bit about what you should expect. On this bag, we have dried cherry, raw honey, mango juice, and vanilla. So I go into every single brew that I do with a coffee thinking about those things. Whatever it says on the bag, even if it's just smooth, crisp, refreshing, more of those general notes versus something a little bit more specific like this. So take that in mind, and then now we're going to actually evaluate the coffee itself. So there are 6 things that we will roll through very quickly because they're not big, massive concepts. They're just things that you need to take note of as you are brewing, and even before you brew. And it does start before you brew. All right, number 1, fragrance. How does the ground coffee smell? That's the first piece of evaluation when you're actually looking and evaluating and reviewing the coffee that you have, whether you're grinding it yourself or you're having your local coffee shop grind it for you so that you can dose it as precisely or as generally as you want. Knowing that fragrance has an impact on how your brew is going to go is very important. If it smells fruity and vibrant, you know that you can expect a fruity and vibrant cup. If it smells kind of dull and dirty, not like, it smells like dirt and earthy, then you know that you can probably expect something like that. All right, so number 2, your brew time. And you're asking yourself the question, how did brewing go? You might have some metrics that you have written down in a notebook, or you might be using your go-to method. You might even be using the method that might be printed on the side of the bag. See, Onyx posts a whole bunch of information. Usually it's in a different font, but they are getting ready to switch over their packaging. That's why you can't really see it super well. But they have a brew guide, a very simple brew guide listed on the side of their packaging. So take note of if it hit the marks that you're supposed to be hitting or if it didn't hit the marks that you're supposed to be hitting. All right, number 3, aroma. We're still dealing with smell. We're not dealing with the same kind of smell characteristics that we were talking about with fragrance, but we're actually evaluating how the brewed coffee itself smells. Once you smell how the ground coffee is, once you've brewed it, now you get to the point before you taste it, like, all right, does this smell good? Does it smell anything like the fragrance that we got off of it from the ground coffee? Does it smell appetizing? Literally, does it smell good? Number 4, that's where we're getting to actually tasting the coffee. And you're going to ask yourself 2 things about taste. First of all, does it taste good? Is it something that you can enjoy as you sip on it, as you read the paper, you scroll through Instagram or Facebook, or as you do whatever work you're getting ready to sit down and do after you brew your coffee? Secondly, does it taste like the bag says it should? If I brew this coffee up, does it taste anything like dried cherry, raw honey, mango juice, or vanilla? So, the first question that you're asking is more of an absolute scale. You're trying to absolutely figure out, does this taste good? Do I enjoy this? Am I enjoying what I am drinking, regardless of if it's tasting like other people have said it's supposed to taste? And secondly, this is the second question is more of a relative question. You're trying to ask, is it tasting like the roaster intended it to taste? Ways that if it doesn't taste like it's supposed to, ways that you can fix that is you might be able to adjust your brewing. You might be able to change some water temperature things. You might even be able to brew with better water. Things that you can manipulate in the brewing process to make your coffee taste better. That's how you answer that second question under taste. Number 5, we're evaluating body on number 5. Now, body differs from taste because you're using a little bit more of a detective skill to really evaluate what's going on here. Taste dealt with flavor and notes and how it actually tastes. Now we're talking about how it feels as you drink it. So the first question you're going to ask, is it sour or is it bitter? This is one of those things, the first indicator of if you've extracted it properly or if you didn't extract it properly. If it doesn't taste sour or bitter, then you're doing awesome. You are moving into great brewing territory. When I say sour, I mean unpleasantly sour. When I say bitter, I mean unpleasantly bitter. Sometimes the notes, like mango juice, it's going to be a little bit more on the sour side, but it's a pleasant citrusy sour, as well as dried cherry. That might be a little bit more bitter, but it's a pleasant bitter. So when you're talking about sourness, you're going to feel it in your jaw. It's going to not be an enjoyable experience, and that means that you didn't extract the coffee enough. When you talk about bitter, you're going to feel it more in your cheeks, and it's going to make you scrunch up your nose more or less. And that means that you extracted the coffee too much. You let it brew. You pulled out too many good particles in the coffee, for lack of better words. So if it's too sour, that means you might need to lower your coffee dose, or you might need to grind finer. If it's too bitter, you might need to add a little bit more coffee to your ground coffee portion, or you need to coarsen up your grind just a little bit more. Second question that you're going to be talking about when you're talking about body is it drying or is it watery? Now that relates just like to sour and bitter. If it's drying, that means it's too bitter. You kind of feel like your mouth, like you're parched. You need to take a drink of water. That means that you have extracted too much. And you need to, like we said, you need to add more coffee, or you need to grind a little bit coarser. If it's watery, if it's kind of leaving you wanting more, then you need to extract more. Take a little bit of coffee out of your dry coffee dose, or you need to fine up your grind. Number 6, this is the final thing that you want to evaluate, and that is time. We talked about brew time earlier at the top of this video, but this is actually about after you've brewed it, how long you let it sit. If you can kind of tell how good a coffee is based on how long you can let it sit and it still tastes good. AKA, let it cool down, taste it, ask yourself, hey, is it tasting good as it's cooled down? All right, so that is our 6-step process of how to review and evaluate your coffees at home. Just as a review, you have your fragrance. How does it smell when it's ground? Your brew time. Does it brew like you want it to? You have your aroma. How does it smell? After you brewed it, you have your taste. Does it taste good? And does it taste like the bag says it should? You have your body. Is it sour or drying? Is it dry, sour or bitter? Is it drying or watery? And finally, the time that you let it cool down. How does it taste after it's cooled down? So I do want to make a quick note before we close out this video really quick. I don't want to be super long-winded on this, but everything that you're seeing from either the YouTube channel, the Instagram and Facebook, or the blog, as of late, it's been just me doing that. I've been doing that in my spare time, in between taking my dogs out while I'm at home, in between shifts at work. I'm actually about to, as soon as I click stop recording on this, I'm going to open up my laptop and start getting to work on my real job, because this is just a passion project that I really enjoy doing, and I really enjoy sharing the things that I'm learning at my job and that I get to employ at my job with you guys, whoever you might be, whatever level of interest or education you might have when it comes to coffee. I'm literally just using my iPhone 11 and a ring light that I purchased off of Amazon to make sure that lighting is all nice and pretty visible so that we can talk about things. And just right over my shoulder, or your shoulder, I guess, whatever, I have a whiteboard with all of the notes for this video. But if you want to support what we're doing, because I don't make any money off of these videos or any content that I post. The only thing I make is just about 20% on whatever books are purchased through Amazon. If you want to support this, I have a link in the description to our Patreon account. Patreon is a really great resource if you want to support the creators that you enjoy watching and following. If they have one, that is a perfect way. Just for like $5 a month, you can be a part of what is going on here. You have a say in this whole thing, this whole community of making sure that coffee is accessible to everyday drinkers just like you. So if you have a friend who might be interested in coffee, share these videos with them. The least I would ask you to do is to share what we have going on, just using the share button. That's a little bit further down. But anyways, I don't want to take too much of your time. I hope you enjoyed talking about reviewing and evaluating coffees, as we talk more about reviewing the things that we're doing at home. So have a great rest of your day, whatever you're doing, whenever you're watching this. And as always, happy brewing.